we're going to go to open microphone. And the open mic is an opportunity for you to come up and express views on any issues that we've talked about, policy matters, how Aaron operates, similar. So the open microphone is open now. You can, Aaron's operations, open consultation matters, feel free to approach the microphone. This is your chance to have an open floor to discuss issues that you want to raise with Aaron. And we're an hour early, so we got a lot of time. It's amazing how many people want to speak and then suddenly it goes silent. So we actually have a number of consultations open. As people might be aware, go ahead, put it up. As people might be aware, when we're going to make a significant change to our operational practice, we tend to open a consultation. We don't do it all the time because we need to function as an organization, but we do it for major ones that we think people might have input into. These are the active consultations. We have an active consultation on the routing registry roadmap. We have an active consultation on the ASO review consultation on future structure of the ASO. There's one on securing who is queries. There's a lot of discussion about what we do and do we redirect people to more secure mechanisms. There's one on expanding the size of the Board of Trustees. There's one on fee schedule changes. And there's one general on prioritizing all of the open suggestions for development. So these get a lot of email, and we're in a meeting where all of you are in a room, and I guess I'm wondering, are we just shy of the microphones? If someone wants to speak on one of these open consultations, feel free to approach the mics. Okay, Kevin.
Kevin Bloomberg, The Wire. You really asked for it, John, but anyway.
I did.
I guess that was the intent. I'd like to see us not have us putting in ACSPs and you actually putting them in and asking for feedback more often. The reason I'm saying this is best common practices of an organization operationally, we should not have to be telling you. The example was two-factor authentication a couple years ago, mailing list improvements to email deliverability, all of these wonderful things. And I appreciate that Aaron takes this input. I appreciate that you do it. I'm just asking that you try to look at the stuff yourself first before we're coming to you for some best common practices. So I'm trying to be generous, but these are things that the kind of organization that Aaron is should be doing before people like myself or others come up and suggest it in the ACSP or this open mic. So,
for example, redirecting queries to more secure who is HTTPS.
Yes, the whole concept of HTTPS. EV certificate, John, you don't have an EV certificate on your website, whatever it may be.
So Kevin, in this case, for example, we have a lot of suggestions of what to do, but in some cases it's contested of whether they're best practices.
I understand.
And so that's why we take the ones that aren't clear and we say, do you want us to do this? And if so, are there implications? Other times, we're putting them in front of you because we're worried about the cost. A feature that only 3% of the community wants, we need to really get validation before we spend money on it.
I'm not saying don't have an ACSP process.
Yeah.
I'm saying please submit yourself. Don't wait for us to submit so that we can have those discussions, and that's fine. I understand things cost money. I understand all of that. But I think there are a lot of things that you can be doing that you know you could be doing. Don't wait for us to say that, put it up there. And then yes, absolutely. I do think there are small things that you shouldn't need to ask us for when it comes to security of the website, when it comes to those things. The who is a whole different understanding because it breaks thing, and I get that.
Right.
But there are normal things that you can do that I don't think you have to wait for an ACSP on.
Right. It's not as if we don't come up with our own suggestions. We just prioritize them lower than the backlog of things you've told us.
I understand.
But we'll try to kick our priorities, and the smaller cost items we'll try to push ahead with without bothering.
Thank you.
Okay. Microphones remain open. Center rear mic.
Hi, afternoon, everyone. Stephen Lee. Architects Inc., member of the Caribbean team. Just wanted to give some quick feedback on the recent Aaron on the road meetings in the Caribbean, Aaron in the Caribbean meetings, especially comparing it to some of the earlier Caribbean sector meetings from before 2010. Really like the direction in which it is going now. The content is a lot, very much focused on where the minds of the operators and technical community in the Caribbean are. I think it's answering a lot of questions that people have about getting their number resources and getting themselves set up properly. So I was in the one in St. Kitts, very strong turnout and a lot of meaningful conversations, which I think is benefiting both Aaron and the constituents there.
Thank you. Excellent to hear.
Can I jump in since, yes,
Yes.
the voice you hear is me, sorry.
Of course, sure.
While we're on a bit of Caribbean talk, there is one more community consultation that's not listed there because it's a call, but I would note that the board does have open the call for volunteers of Caribbean background interested in serving on the Aaron Board of Trustees. We have put that forward just late last week. There is a committee dealing with that. I know this is kind of more a members meeting, but I know some people are not here tomorrow. So I just want to remind that that's an item that we are happy to take feedback on. Right. The chair of that committee is just down there. So feel free to approach Bill now or later if you have thoughts, comments, or suggestions.
Thank you. Excellent point. Center front, Mike.
Owen DeLong, Aaron AC. I've stood up and complained about a lot of things this week, so I'm actually here to say I do really appreciate the efforts being made on the website. I think that's going in a very positive direction. I really appreciate some of the changes that have been made to Aaron Online. It has become much more usable in the last 6 months than it had been prior to that. And so the staff is doing some excellent work, and I'm very happy about that.
Excellent.
We're not happy till you're happy, Owen.
So based on that feedback, Owen, thank you very much. I'd like you to submit a suggestion.
Oh.
Can you submit a suggestion that says, along with first, last, next page, prior page, put a button that says full list so we can give you back the full list that you can cut and paste and all that? Okay, because otherwise I'll forget that, and you noted it as a step in the wrong direction, so we should fix that as well. Okay, center rear Mike.
Hi, so this is Iranga again with the FBI. I just had a quick question because I know in the past in speaking with Leslie, we had circulated, or maybe not circulated, but discussed things such as adding a legal point of contact in the Aaron database. And so I just wasn't sure if that was just a thought that had been circulating around and needed more action to be formally submitted, or if that is actually circulating somewhere.
This is the community's database. We have no view on, the staff have no view on whether we need a legal contact. We have an abuse contact. If people think we need a legal contact, it's, you know, there's a bit of work in adding it and populating it, and deciding the default and making sure, and then when we request that from people to be assigned, but it all could be done. At this time, we've never, to my knowledge, we haven't received a formal request for legal contact. But I think if you think it's important, you should find people in this room and get together and put a proposal in, because it would be easy to add. It can be put in as a suggestion, and then we'll work on any policy implications in number management.
All right, sounds
Okay.
good. Thanks.
Microphones remain open. We can switch back to the open mic slide. They know where to find the consultations. Any other input for Aaron? Had a productive day. I want to make sure people have a chance to speak. Yes, over here, right microphone. Is it on? We may not have a microphone.
Come this side. This works.
Okay. We're getting there.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, how are
Very
you doing?
good. Kathrona Samuel, Antigua Public Utilities Authority. First-time fellow. So let me just say thank you for this opportunity. It's been very enlightening and very enriching. And I just want to echo the sentiment of Stephen Lee. We have not yet had Aaron in the Caribbean in Antigua, but we are looking forward to it. And being here has made me very much aware of the knowledge deficits that exist within the region. So we're really looking forward to it next month, and I just want to encourage you to keep up the good work in the region. Thank you.
Excellent to have you here. Center mic.
Hi, Carrie Richards, RNAC member. I just want to say that the fellowship program that led me to be nominated for the AC and how things fell into place, I think it was a wonderful process, and I think that the AC, as it stands right now, it was as much as it was a bit scary, because it is scary walking into this room being the Caribbean voice, but I do think that the AC and the team, the staff, really made sure that Alisa and I were groomed well. We fully understood, our level of understanding has increased since we've been on the AC, and we just want to say thank you.
Oh, you're more than welcome, and we're very happy to have you. Very good. Microphones remain open. I am closing them shortly.
Well,
Shortly is coming now.
I'll just add that the list of consultations we had, I really encourage, everyone's jokes, haha, you asked for it when we think, but no, we really do, especially on the board ones, need as much input as we can get, the good, the bad. We have some important items before us in the coming time, so please either feedback today, we have open microphone tomorrow, mailing list, grab us in the hall. Please give us as much feedback as you can on what we are proposing. So thank you.
Thank you. Remote?
Brian Jones. I agree. Owen has a great suggestion about the long list. I like to be able to control F and find things in list versus having to page through sections of pages. Otherwise, I echo the appreciation for all the work on the Aaron web pages. It's getting so much better.
Wonderful. Good to hear. And I'm closing the microphones with our last speaker, Senator Rear.
Kevin Bloomberg, The Wire. Thank you for reminding me, Paul, the board consultation on size. Perfect time, I guess, during open mic. I've been kind of quiet on it on the mailing list. Before I look as a community member at suggesting that or supporting changes like that, I want to understand what the actual problem is. What are the deficiencies of the current board set that necessitate it? I've been on boards of the size of that Aaron is, and I've found them to be extremely productive. If as a community the board feels, if as a community we need to be told that there is a deficiency, please tell us there's a deficiency during the election phase so that we as a community can help elect those deficiencies. And vice versa, the NOMCOM needs to deal with those deficiencies. So I'm really grappling with that. I consider expanding the board to be a last-ditch effort. I would love to see the board have board liaisons, board advisors, whatever it may take to improve without necessarily improving the core voting block, the core voting requirements, all of those things. So I'm hesitant, like I said, but please feedback as much as you can, because right now I don't feel that as a community we have enough information as to what the problem is to be able to accurately help you.
So I can start and then John can. There's a few items, I guess, that we see. First of all, are the current board able to execute the mission of Aaron? Yes, but do we think we could do a better job if we had a wider background or diversity of thought, diversity of backgrounds? Yes. We have just noted that given the workloads, given some of the issues that come in front of us, having a wider number of backgrounds around the table is useful, because there are some very key questions every August that John brings to us. And while yes, there can be too many, and there's with larger numbers there can be some efficiency challenges, we don't believe that there will be a challenge with the size that we're looking at. And we've also, as for what we're looking for, well, we have expressed that to previous NOMCOMs, and yes, we are looking at a bunch of other improvements. For instance, there's been a note at least 3 years running at the bottom of the nomination committee charter stating some of the attributes we've been looking for. And while it's varied, for instance, last year's nomination committee put together, I thought, an excellent slate, putting many of those qualifications together. The other thing that we're always looking for is some diversity of skill background. It was excellent to have, for the first time, at least in my existence, and I think the board's history, somebody with the actual financial literacy background, professional background in Nancy Carter, and the board is already seeing significant improvement in some of the financial matter having that. Yes, we all had some financial background before, and we like to see that in some of the other skill sets. And on that, we will be circulating soon a document, because we've heard many a time that it would be good to refresh, for lack of a better term, the job description and skills that we're looking for. And that is right now literally in the last draft stages, and we hope to have that out fairly shortly with some other governance items. I could go on, but I think I'll give John a shot.
I would like to, I'll go verbatim from the consultation, to be very clear. So in February this year, the Aaron Board discussed an additional issue beyond the question of diversity of background or geography or skill set. We discussed the additional issue related to the present side of the board, specifically the challenge that a smaller board poses when engaging in strategic discussions, for example, in regard to the long-term direction or relationships with other internet organizations. While many of these topics are discussed with the community prior to decision, example, formation of the NRO, support for the IANA stewardship transition, it is often the Aaron Board of Trustees to decide whether to explore these initiatives when they're in an early stage. So, there's a wide diversity of the internet ecosystem that can be affected by Aaron's strategic direction, and this includes internet service providers of all sizes, internet online content industry, data center and cloud operators, educational and government networks, commercial firms, civil society. While the trustees elected by the community often have broad knowledge of the internet ecosystem, 7 trustees is a relatively small group to evaluate impacts across the entire internet ecosystem. That's actually the text of the consultation. And it's talking about something aside from the actual gender, geographic, skill set diversity of the board. It's literally talking about the number of people in the room and the breadth of their individual backgrounds. So when you have to discuss something at a strategic level with just the board, do you actually have enough people who know all the relevant corners of the internet?
And just one last time, because I hear the number 7 thrown around, and from our standpoint, it's 6 generally. John, he's 2 feet away, is the CEO. Right. He has a much different perspective. Generally, he's coming with strategies to us, and he's looking for input on that. So he doesn't normally count himself on that. Right. Yes, we are looking at doing an appointment, but that's not something we're hesitant to do that, and we would much rather the board come from the elected community. But thank you for letting us babbling. I see now at least people lining up.
Go ahead, Kathy.
So, Kathy Aronson, I've thought about this a lot, and I always try to post something constructive when this comes up, but it's always been a popularity contest, and we've had a number of unbelievably qualified candidates over the years here and there that had no chance of being on the Aaron board because no one in this community knew them. Mm-hmm. So giving guidance to the NOMCOM is great, but giving that guidance, or at least some sort of condensed version of it, to the community to give them guidance as to maybe we don't want to pick the person whose name we recognize, maybe we want to pick the person who can do the job, might be a good idea. I mean, it's just the election process makes it really hard to get the people you need. Maybe appointing them is a better idea, because at least then the community will see that person for a while and know who that person is, and then maybe they could get elected. But it's a really high bar in this community. If we haven't heard of you, you're not going to get voted in, and it's a catch-22.
Yeah. At a minimum, the guidance to the NOMCOM, while public, isn't front and center when you're seeing the slate. And at least the slate announcement, and maybe in the election process, we should highlight, here was the guidance given to the NOMCOM. That's a minimum first step we could do on that line. Senator Rear?
So, Kevin Bloomberg, The Wire. John, I understand what you're saying. And the issue that you brought up is a singular issue around certain topics, but not for just the daily running and good nature of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that you can get that input, like I said, what I said earlier, which was through board advisors, board liaisons, whatever it may be. I believe that having that core is important, because otherwise and this is the negative side to increasing the board size, you start having board shopping internally on matters. And I don't want to see that necessarily become a problem.
Right.
I've seen it on other boards, and it can be extremely problematic, far more than the problem you're trying to solve. Try that first, is my suggestion.
Well, I just want to comment, because you comment about the day-to-day running of the, organization. No, and
Yeah.
that's important, because it's just, and that's not what the board does, and we try and stay out of it. There's a large, professional, excellent staff back in Northern Virginia that run the day-to-day operations. The board, yeah, well,
Sorry.
no, but,
Can I clarify what I meant?
okay.
What I meant was the day-to-day running that a board is used to doing, the things like the budgets, the things, all of the things that you have in your action plan that are day-to-day for a board. I realize it might be misconstrued as the day-to-day running of the organization. I'm just saying the things that a board normally does. This one issue is
Which one issue is that?
the one that was brought up about diversity for being able to work within other environments. That was part of this.
We're looking for it from a standpoint of helping to form better strategy for the organization, with the role of the board being the management of the CEO, setting a budget and setting a strategic plan. The strategic planning is by far the most important skill. I would encourage all of you to make sure that that's what we look for in good board members that can help give that guidance to the CEO, so he has his marching orders and he takes that off and executes for us.
Again, you can get that from non-voting advisors. Guys, I don't know, guys, girls, people, I don't know what the specific reason is. We had a consultation 6 months ago, okay? So there's more to it, and I understand that, but try something that's not expanding the board, and I will leave it at that.
Kevin, I think I heard your point. I think it is possible for the board, when it has a topic, and it's a well-understood topic, to bring in additional expertise to make sure it has a broad enough base if it doesn't feel the 6 elected members are enough. So the challenge is, these are often strategic direction. And the example I used in the announcement, the IANA stewardship transition, saying, yes, we do believe that it's possible for the U.S. government to relinquish its contract and for the community to be represented by the collective RIRs. That's a decision that you can't take to this room. There's the questions you can't take to the whole audience, because even their consideration affects the dynamics. You have to discuss it among the board, because you're going to set things in motion that have implications. So when you do that, if you bring advisors in, depending on who you bring in as advisors, you end up with a skew on the output. And so I will tell you that I'm the one who has pushed hard for a larger board, specifically because our ecosystem, we are not a normal trade organization. We don't function as the association of a particular industry and all the representatives are here. We're part of an internet ecosystem with other RIRs, operating in an evolving landscape. There's a lot of strategic questions. If someone asked where we'll be in 5 years or 10 years, a lot of that is actually an open question, okay? On regard to how we work, our relationship with other organizations, how the address registry works. So we can bring in people to help, and that's a suggestion that I'm going to take to heart and try to figure out one way or another how to use. But I guess all I'm saying is that if we don't expand the size of the board, then I'm relying on the 6-member elected board, and you have to have a lot of faith in them that when they send us off looking at something that is strategic in a direction and it has implications, you have to be satisfied that it was launched by those 6 people, even if they didn't have a full view of the landscape.
Yeah, I'd just like to add just 2 things. First of all, the board does bring advisors in. We've used people such as Ben Elliman.
We have.
Many know we have our external counsel, and in other cases we've used that. That's not a problem. But we're talking about the people who are elected by our membership to be accountable, who are in some cases, being faced with large decisions that affect the greater community. So finding the right balance of input is something important. Last year we did do a consultation, which we got good feedback on, and there was questions, and we realized that perhaps there was a bit too much focus on it, that this one thing was going to solve a problem that was commonly being done. And we don't suggest that this by itself solves a problem. It's this, because it's a bylaw matter, is a consultation, but a lot of other work that the board's been doing, both in terms of the nomination committee, the job description items that we feel will help in that regard.
I'm trying to say you can have non-voting board members. Call them advisors, elect them, whatever it may be. You don't need to expand the size of the voting board.
Oh,
that
that's
is what
a
I'm
different
trying to
nuance.
say.
Okay. That's very important.
Because I have, Paul, you've been, in fact, on a board where we had somebody who was a board advisor who was in every board meeting, who was there to help and provide feedback, but was non-voting. And you can elect that person, you can appoint the person, that doesn't matter. But I don't want to expand the core voting board, and I think that's really all I'm trying to say.
Got it.
I'm just saying, I've had that, we've come a second time because, and I've put it on the agenda, I'm only speaking for myself and not on behalf of the board, because we feel I at least have felt very strongly, I know John felt very strongly, that this is not so much about fixing something that's broken, but increasing the strength of your board, which is good for the community and the organization. So.
Thank you.
Rear microphone, yes?
Was there someone remote first?
Remote?
Yes, if you wish to cede. Jason Schiller, Google ASOAC. Can we have those added board seats restricted to the needed type? And if we can't fill that needed type, leave it unfilled or redefine the type needed.
Okay.
Alyssa Morris-Ibera, RNAC. I am hearing the current board and the president and CEO say that they would like a larger group of people helping with the strategic direction of the organization, and whether that is in the form of voting or non-voting members doesn't bother me either way. However, I don't think that they should be elected. Unfortunately, direct democracy doesn't always solve the exact vacuum of skills that may need to be filled on a board. And so I am in favor of having them appointed when and if necessary by the current board. And I know there's a mechanism for one seat to be appointed each year right now. If there's a feeling that there should be up to 9, then perhaps that number can be increased and that mechanism can be used where possible. And again, whether they vote or not it doesn't matter to me, but it still increases the diversity of thought in the room and gets those people that you may need into the conversations, whether they are someone who operates who has a strong data center background. I think everyone on the current board is from the ISP community or a network operator in some form or another, and that's not our community. That's not representative of them. So, my thoughts.
Thank you. If I can just, first Jason's, I think we've been trying to, kind of both the time, we've been trying to balance two things. First of all, we've heard from the community they are strong proponents of an elected board. So I think that's why we have always shied away. We have not gone down the appointment road because there has been just concerns that may not be as accountable to the membership. And I think, Jason, you have a good suggestion. We have looked at those models for one. There was several where we looked at a few, especially as it related to the geographic one. I think our concern, I'm not saying it's not workable, is just and we've seen other systems, is complexity of the voting system sometimes can cause ill effects. So we've tried to keep it, in the end, a simple system of so many seats, so many votes, but I don't think we're opposed to looking at any of that.
Okay, rear microphone?
I thought Owen was first, but...
You actually were in queue before him.
Oh, okay.
I maintain queues.
Okay, thank you. So a big part of my day job is actually corporate governance. I actually am chair of 2 boards in Canada. I'm secretary of another, and I've been chair of other boards, and I advise boards and organizations on governance. So my observations are sort of colored through that particular lens. And I really do agree that for this organization with this complexity and the number of stakeholders that it is part of, this is a small board in my experience. That, I think, is true. I also think that elected directors are the way to go. But I would suggest that you look at this issue in a more comprehensive way than just a board expansion issue, but perhaps more of a broader governance review. And a few of the things that I've observed, and I don't have detailed knowledge, so if I'm not on point on anything, that may be the true because I don't have the complete visibility. But for example, when it comes to the nominating committee, I think it would be very good to actually post public ads and not necessarily just rely on community members for the nominating committee. And in fact, ensure that there's diversity of skill set on the nominating committee itself. That's one idea. The other is, in a similar vein, that board members that we could try to find mechanisms to actually draw in more board members who are independent of our particular business, because I think as much as we can try and cover off internal blind spots, we may not cover the big external blind spots that are completely outside of our ecosystem but could still be the elephant hoof that could crush us one day. So those are some of my observations. The last one is probably going to be the least popular, and I may have to flee after I make it, but...
Close the doors, close the doors.
I'm a big believer in board term limits, and if you really want board renewal, I think that's a measure that ought to be considered, and it's a very tough thing for incumbents to consider. And by the way, lest anybody think that I'm, just saying this for the board, I'd be happy if that were the case in the AC as well. I do think that that's one way you get board renewal and diversity is by forcing people to step away after some specified period of time, so it doesn't become perpetuated by virtue of history alone. So those are my major comments. Thanks.
So I thank you, Chris. Those were great feedback. I think I agree with you. We're trying to look at this as a more comprehensive, maybe not as expansive as you proposed, but I know that we, for instance, have looked and we've just adopted a more formal appointment process before we had the right, but we've actually put some meat on how that process works from a governance, so it's transparent, and of course we're running that code right now. We're doing some work with the NOMCOM. We had tried to do a bit more. We got a little too aggressive, so we'll be doing some more work in August, but we've made some improvements both in terms of just the data that we're collecting from those, all the nominees that you will hopefully all read in detail, and trying to do some digging into the verification, which we're of the nominees, so we'll hopefully be able to get some more potential outside candidates. Not that those from within the community are not excellent. We're looking at some board leadership mentorship programs that'll be adopted. Term limits is something that has been discussed in recent memory as well, so it is something we've considered along with the board size. So yeah, we are looking at this as a larger piece of puzzle about just how do we raise the effectiveness and bar on the board. So, but I can, and I don't say that to say, I agree with you on that we are trying to look as many pieces of the puzzle. There isn't going to be one, because I hear that often, that I guess thing is people say, well, this doesn't solve the problem. I agree in that no one issue is going to solve it. We're going to have to do a little bit, including the community, all the feedback we can get on hopefully electing these people.
And just to say, I think that Aaron's been very good at self-reflection and development and is service-oriented both internally and externally. So I have every confidence you'll figure it out. So it's not meant to be as a terrible criticism of the status quo, because I don't think you're in a horrible place now at all. As you say, I just think it could be even better. Thank you.
Criticism is often an opportunity for improvement, and thank you. Yes, over here.
This is a follow-up to the phrasing that Jason used. Brian Jones, I think needed types for the board should be clearly defined and published so the community understands what the needs are before voting or reading over credentials for the nominated members when in search of who to vote for.
Okay, excellent. I am closing the microphones. Owen, you were there? Sure, okay. Microphones are closing shortly. Closing momentarily. Microphones are closed. Thank you for the feedback. This ends our open microphone session.